Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting with American Federation of State County Municipal Employees, asking local 1124 negotiations meeting to order for June 12, 2025, 8:30 a.m. at City Hall main conference room as advertised. The next order of business is citizen comments. We have a couple of citizens today, anyway. No.
Because we're not all there.
Okay. For the record. Next, we'll move to the active agenda. Item A, American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, Local 1124, collective bargaining agreement negotiations. Mrs. Warren, we'll welcome you back and turn it over to you for any additional comments or.
No pheasant starts today. We're good. We're good. All right, so after the meeting Tuesday night, we went through, because there was some concerns with the language for the holidays overtime pay. So we did rework that and try to clarify that, basically use the same verbiage that the city proposal had, but did change the rates because we are proposing different rates than the city has proposed. And then we have dropped the extra 1% for the wage adjustment for year 2 and 3 of the contract.
I'm sorry, will you repeat that last part?
Year 2 and 3, the extra 1% wage adjustment that was in our prior proposal. We have dropped that. Yes.
Then it also looked like you guys had just taken our personnel policy.
Yeah, so originally I copied the same language from the personnel policy for the types of discipline. We did add sunset clauses where the items for the lower reprimands are removed after a certain time period. And then there was some concern with that in the last meeting. So because the city comment was the personnel policy, so I went ahead and copied in the other section of the personnel policy for how that is outlined. We did make some adjustments to it. One of them was for who's at the discipline or the demotion termination hearing to include union stewards. And then because if the employee is represented by the union, they're entitled to union representation, which could include our general counsel. So we wanted that added in there too. And am I going too fast?
Oh, I'm writing these down and we're gonna go back to holiday.
Okay.
I just list them, whatever.
Okay.
What do you?
So then, I did have a question under the notice of disciplinary action, which is up another section. So when reading that, if
Can we get to that one? We'll just list them down and then we'll go through them. How's that?
Okay, so that one, I just had a question on the report detailing the notice of disciplinary action. Is that notice is supposed to have when the discipline is supposed to take effect, but if this is the employee is entitled to a pre-hearing before that's issued, that kind of, the way it was written was confusing in my opinion.
Anything else on the list?
And then, of course, the same was, we want for the 40-hour work week to include overtime, or for overtime calculation to include vacation, sick leave, holidays, which was the same as our proposal Tuesday.
Yes.
Do you want to explain the holiday, Ryan, or you want me to?
Rick was actually prepared on that.
We're gonna turn back up the holiday change, right?
Yes, so for the holiday
And
part,
can you reference a page in your red line version, right? It should be reflected in there.
It should be 16.
Article 12, yeah, page 16
Article 12.
is where it starts. Well, your page numbers are good. Okay, so what we are proposing for holiday, when an employee is scheduled to work on a holiday, they receive compensation at 1.5 times the regular rate of pay for the hours worked that holiday, in addition to a standard holiday shift. So straight time is how it's referred to in the other part of the contract, which is an increase of 1/2 of wages from what's the current practice.
So I just want to make sure I understand that correctly. If you work a 10-hour shift on a holiday, the employee wants to be paid for 25 hours.
Okay.
For 1 day's work, is that correct?
25 plus no,
No.
sorry,
So for working a 10-hour shift, the city is paying the employee for 25 hours.
Nikki, do you know if the store's open? Unlocked?
It's not
What's
a
the
law.
math on that, right? Is that correct?
It's 15 hours.
It'd be a 10-hour holiday pay,
So 15 hours
15 hours of
per hour
time and a
Yeah.
half.
for work.
Yes, so 25.
Plus your
Employee,
holiday.
the city would pay 25 hours
Correct.
to the employee
Mhm.
for one day.
On holiday.
So I think what I would suggest maybe, Nikki, is that we, maybe go through their proposed changes and get clarification on them, then why don't we talk this
I think that's a good idea.
briefly, then we can just, instead of debating this.
You know, I just wanted to clarify that that's what the language meant,
Okay,
Yes.
because I think that'll be part of the discussion that we have.
so we got that one.
And then, we are,
And what is the rationale behind that premium? So it's, so still this, I'm looking at the language, so if they work on the holiday, they will see compensation at 1.5 the regular rate of pay for the actual hours worked. Plus the holiday pay equivalent to their workday. So what is the rationale behind the 1.5 for the hours worked?
because most employers who, when you do work a holiday, you get double time.
Okay, in
Well,
addition to
2.5 times.
Well, double time for other employers does not include straight time for holiday.
So they get, other places, they pay them
Three
Three
times
times
the rate of
for
pay.
one workday.
Yes.
So if it were 10 hours,
Do
the
you have
employer
any-
would pay them
Do
30
you have
hours.
any examples of
Yeah, I do.
those employers?
I do. Just give me a second, I'll get that for
So,
Before we move on, let's
you
figure out,
guys. Can-
no, well, we'd like to kind of like not jump around so much, and that way we stay on topic and what issue through
Okay.
issue.
Chris has that, so give him just a minute.
And how many employers did you survey
Uh,
who pay triple time?
quite a few.
And you brought copies? Of all those places?
Yeah.
Their policy?
Mhm.
Okay. I'd be interested in looking at
Okay.
information.
I can bring you copies too, if you like.
Can I add, Laura, can I add to that, that when you're talking about compensation on a holiday, essentially the scheduled holiday, this is in the summertime, this could include 3 employees. In the off-season, when I say off-season, well, one, it would include 1 full-time employee and 1 part-time employee. I
A
don't-
very
I
small
don't mean,
minority of the bargaining group that is actually.
Yes.
Yes.
well, it affects the only part of the bargaining group that works all, that's scheduled to work on all.
Which is the water plant and wastewater plant.
Correct.
so while Chris is looking for that, I'd like to do a little exercise with you. It's not a trick question.
Am I gonna have to run a lap? I'm not a fast runner.
Okay, no, I just want to take, because we did this the other day when you're not able to make it. So under the paragraph, I read the underlying language that you have there, employees on bottom of page 17. So what I want to do is ask you, if the employee worked 16 hours that day, would you please calculate the hours for me that the employee would be paid? And I don't want to give any more information than that. I just want to see how you interpret the language.
So for a scheduled employee or a call out?
The
An
language says
assigned-
for scheduled, who are scheduled to work.
Okay,
And so I'm saying you have an employee who's scheduled to work on a designated holiday and they end up working 16 hours that day. So if you would tell me how many total hours they're getting compensated.
what's their normal shift? Is it a 10 or an
10-hour
8 hour
shift.
shift? Do the math, just to make sure I'm right.
And Nikki and Leo, I would ask you to do the same thing.
You said 16 hours now?
Yeah.
Based on their language,
Based on their language.
16 on a holiday.
And they work a normal 10-hour shift.
Except on this day, they work 16 hours.
Yes.
They were scheduled for 10.
Yes, so they would get 24 hours at the holiday, the time and a half plus 10 hours is straight, so it would be 34
So they-
hours.
Okay, so
They're compensated for
maybe a
30.
little bit slower. So how many hours for holiday pay?
Holiday pay would be 24.
Well, holiday pay would be 10 hours.
Oh, sorry, the straight time,
Yeah.
the straight time is 10 because they work a normal 10-hour shift.
Okay,
And then they work 16, but because they're being paid at time and a half, it's like they put in 24 hours. They work 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yes.
Time and a half.
No. 24
Oh,
hours,
24
that's straight
hours, yeah.
time. Yes,
Right,
because
okay.
the 24 hours is multiplied by 1.5.
So 16 hours times 1.5 is 24, plus they get 10 hours.
For the straight holiday
Straight
pay.
time.
Mhm.
Okay. So 34 hours. And then they're all paid at the same rate on those hours, right? So they're
Because
34,
the calculation of the time and a half was
34
from that
times
16
16.
to 24.
Leah, questions?
I don't think so. I just wonder if an employee actually works that, would they see the extra 6 hours as even additional pay?
Well,
Is
that
that
was my
six-
question,
That
is
6
what do you do
hour
for
over,
overtime?
which is normally time for them.
Ask the question, please.
If an employee was actually entering this, I'm curious if they would see those extra 6 hours as even additional pay beyond the time and a half plus holiday, because that's technically overtime based on how they have it.
But over time on a scheduled holiday is calculated at 1.5.
So the same.
It would be the same.
Okay.
I mean,
So there is no benefit to that other than for the first 10 hours of the working.
correct.
I
But
just
you have
get the choice.
99% of, 99% of the time that.
I could just foresee a situation where Carolyn gets a time card where it's 10 at time and a half and 6 at double time or something, because,
Well, and somebody is misinterpreting something because,
but that's what happens all the time,
well, it
because it's
doesn't
confusing.
happen all the time with the now that this would have been. They know how this would go. See,
Because
this
they're
is
not
normal.
designated.
right. These are scheduled holidays. Nothing new that we have to do. If we threw another group in, I bet it would be confusing, but our schedules.
Yeah.
Confusing, so.
You have the names of those jurisdictions that you surveyed yet?
I'm still, so. I don't have. You need to know the names of all of them too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I'm
I'll just,
asking for.
I'll have to give that to you at a later time then. I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Or when you guys caucus, we can help him
Okay.
organize that and get that.
Here, this is, for the lane, I believe, but
Well, I don't know. I don't think right now we're asking for what their language is. We're just trying to figure out what cities did
Oh,
you get
Coeur
this
d'Alene.
information
Coeur
from?
d'Alene, Pocatello, Post Falls, Boise. And, Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls. And. That's all you wanna know. And there was a couple, within a certain mile radius that are in Washington, which is Walla and Pasco, but. So anyway, I'll look through.
Okay, then on page 18. Nikki and Leah at the top, see Laura. Is there anything we need to discuss there?
Page 18.
Number
Oh, is
six.
that number C? Okay. Page numbers are like Pat, so they're a little off. So that one, we're, wanting a call out on a holiday or Sunday to be paid at 2 times the rate of hourly pay. And then we are wanting to define the holiday from the full 24-hour period, midnight to midnight or 12:01 to midnight. And currently it reads as just a standard shift.
I have a question for this holiday for the call out. So the holiday hours, would that be based on actual time worked, or are they also getting the benefit of the 2-hour window of whether or not they worked? So they would be receiving 2 times their hourly rate of pay in addition to a holiday pay premium between the hours of 12:01 and 11:59.
Yes, so they would get their standard work shift for the holiday
No, no,
pay.
for a call out.
For a call out, so a call out, it does get a minimum of 2 hours, so if the call out is less than that, they do get a minimum of 2 hours, and then that is compensated at 2 times the rate.
Plus an additional 2 hours of holiday pay.
No, you're already
No.
getting paid for the holiday, 8 or 10 hours.
The call out happens during the holiday, then yes, that's regular.
Because what you propose is they will receive both call out pay at 2 times their regular and straight time for holiday pay.
It's the same as what Ryan, what we're doing is basically keeping what we already have in the contract, like Ryan had said before. Not asking for that on the standby, we're asking for nothing new, we're asking for keep what we have. That's what we have right now. We get on holidays and Sundays on call outs, you get, for a call out, you get 2 times your rate of pay. Sundays and holidays, it's been that way for a long time, we're just asking to keep that, it's nothing new.
Well, and I just wanna clarify, you're asking to keep it the same plus increase your working on a holiday pay. So you're not
We're probably
changing
call-outs,
anything,
correct
you're
right now,
asking
maybe.
for more than
Oh.
what you currently.
Call out is different than scheduled.
We switched to call outs, I don't know.
Yeah, we're,
Keeping call outs exactly the same.
Well, you're saying you're keeping everything the same, plus now making scheduled work days on a holiday time and a half instead of straight time.
That's two separate things, call out and scheduled work days, two separate
Well, that's
things.
what I'm saying though, you just said we wanna keep it the same, but then you
Call outs.
also
So we
increase
said
holiday,
Call outs will stay the same
Yes.
as been in the contract for years.
and then increase the holiday.
Holiday pay, we're asking for an increase of 10.5.
So keeping it the same, but increasing holiday pay for hours of work.
Keeping call outs
Scheduled
scheduled.
holiday, yes.
Okay, because I mean, when I'm reading this language, it implies that they're gonna get a holiday pay for that. So if an employee is called out to work on a city recognized holiday or Sunday, they shall receive call out pay at 2 times their hourly rate in addition to holiday pay for their standard workday. This means if a call out occurs between 12:01 AM and midnight, they will receive both call out pay at 2 times their regular and straight time for holiday pay. To me, I would say that they're gonna get 2 times, they're gonna get a one pay for 2 times their rate plus the straight time for holiday pay for that call out.
yes,
So then that's potentially 3 times, because it's two times their rate for that, plus the straight time for the holiday. So that would be 3.
Mhm.
Everybody gets paid for the holiday, we discussed that.
No, okay, so you have a paragraph that's specific to working on a holiday, and you have a paragraph that's specific to a call out.
Correct. Call outs.
Specific to the call out, you are saying that they will get 2 times their hourly rate of pay in addition to holiday pay for the standard workday
That's correct, that's how it's been,
for a call out.
it's been that way for years and years and years.
So a call out is also getting holiday pay, right?
no, the call out, the hours worked on the call out are paid at 2 times the employee's standard rate of pay. So they get called out for 2 hours or 3 hours. They get 3 hours at 2 times the rate of pay, plus their normal 10-hour shift, if that's what they work, of straight holiday pay.
But why does anything about the regular workday matter when it comes down to while they're on a call out? So while you're on a call out, this paragraph describes how they're gonna be paid. They're gonna be paid at 2 times their hourly rate in addition to holiday pay for their standard workday.
Because the way the city wrote it is during, so
But this is,
Say-
this is what you wrote.
let
That's
me,
weird.
let me finish and clarify what I'm trying to say. So say Pat works 6 to 2. It's a holiday, he gets that time off. Now it's 4 o'clock in the evening and he gets called out. That call out is not paid at 2 times the rate of pay because the way the city wrote it, it states that his normal shift is from 6 to 2. That's not a holiday call out, so he's just getting normal call out pay.
And the way, and again, so the way that I'm interpreting the way that you're writing this is that they will be paid at 2 times their hourly rate of pay in addition to holiday pay for their standard workday, meaning that they will get paid, they will receive both call out pay at 2 times their regular rate and straight time for the holiday pay. So if they're on a call out and they're out for 20 minutes, they will get 2 hours at 2 times their rate plus 2 hours of holiday pay.
No, they would get 4 hours for the call out because it's 2 times, so 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 10-hour holiday straight shift.
So then in the paragraph that you're specifically talking about call out and being called out on a holiday, what is the relation to holiday pay on the
Because we
holiday?
don't want the city to define double time as your straight time, plus your straight hours actually work pay to equal double time.
Okay, but in the language that you propose, that's how you're describing it. It's not it doesn't matter what the city proposed, because you're providing your own language on how you want this to read. In reading this, it looks like that what you're asking for is 2 times their hourly rate in addition to holiday pay for their standard workday. It would seem like to me that in writing this, you want that call out to be included as their standard workday, because, you know, this means if a call out occurs between 12:01 a.m. to midnight, they will receive both call out pay at 2 times and straight time for the holiday. So for a call out, that's what you're asking for.
Yes.
So it's 2 times pay plus straight time for holiday pay. So it's not just 2 times their rate. For a call out, you're asking essentially for 3 times their rate of pay
For any time in that 24-hour
or
period.
any time for a call out.
So,
Yes.
may I? So if I'm understanding this, if we just split that and the employee is getting holiday pay for the holiday, period. During call out, they get 2 times. Just separate that, make that 2 paragraphs rather than just 1.
Well, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but I think what she's trying to say is these 2 sentences kind of conflict. And that second sentence implies that even if you got called in at 2 in the morning, you should still get double time for call out and holiday pay during that call out, even though your standard workday for holiday pay maybe doesn't start until 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yes, as long as you have a standard work pay or work day.
So you
But-
should get holiday pay while you're on your call out, plus your normal 10-hour day.
Well, that's the part where, that's where it goes
That
from
is the confusion, I
the
think, that's how
12:01
that's
to
what that
midnight.
sentence is implying.
the 12:01 to midnight.
And did I
not
explain
the-
that right?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So this paragraph is specific to being called out on a holiday. And you're describing the pay that you want while called out on a holiday. You're saying you want 2 times the rate plus straight time for holiday pay. Is that correct?
Correct.
So is there a reason why you couldn't just ask for 3 times on a holiday and just say, if you're called out on a holiday, it will be 3 times the rate of pay, instead of having to map it out and figure out, okay, I've got 2 hours of call out pay plus 2 hours of holiday pay plus.
You'll never
10
have 2 hours of holiday.
No, not the 2 hours
You will
of
never
holiday
have that.
pay.
You're going to have your holiday pay.
You were all just saying, yes, that's exactly what.
When I explained it to you, yeah, you guys literally just said, yeah. So if you get called out at 2 in the morning, this sentence implies that if you're called out at 2 in the morning, let's say you're at work from 2 to 4 a.m. and then your normal shift starts at 6. This sentence implies that from 2 to 4 a.m. when you're on a call, you should also get holiday pay.
No, we just want those extra hours compensated at 2 times the rate of pay.
And then your holiday pay is from 6 to 5.
No. We're saying that a holiday is from, I said this at the city council meeting the other night. the holiday starts at 12:01 on December 25th and it ends at 11:59.
Yeah, midnight to midnight.
Yeah, that's a holiday. Anywhere that I've ever seen a holiday, it's, the holiday's a holiday. It's Sunday's a Sunday. It's not just from
No,
8 to 5.
I understand that's how you guys are asking for it.
Right.
But I'm just saying this language implies that if you got called out from 2 to 4 AM, you should get double time for the call out plus holiday pay during those hours.
That's on a
In
holiday.
addition to your straight.
Yes, it's on
So
Christmas.
he's saying yes, you're saying no.
No. I think the frustrating part, you guys, is that our goal when we came in here, the direction we gave you and the language we gave you was to clarify the contract so that payroll didn't have to sit down and make this guess.
Why do they have to guess, Nikki? Here,
Why are we having this
wait a
conversation?
minute, wait, you're getting upset and.
I'm not getting upset. I'm saying we're going rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds about the same thing. And I've talked to you since December, Ryan.
Hey, I
and the
can tell you
language
exactly
makes
why
sense.
there seems to be confusion. I can tell you exactly
We
why.
provided you language that was clear, and we have yet to hear back on even if you read that
That's
language,
fine,
or even had any questions about that language.
that's fine.
We have not heard back from you on anything we've given you.
The confusion lies in you, however you explain it, you explain it. You explain it as we're getting double time. Whether it's a call out, whether we're scheduled, we're getting double time on a holiday. We see it as everyone's getting holiday pay. So the person who's getting scheduled, as it stands right now, is getting straight time.
Mhm.
So whether it's a random Wednesday or it's a holiday, the person who's working is getting paid the same. This is for a scheduled person, okay? That's where the confusion lies. You call it double time, we call it straight pay because everyone's getting holiday pay. The call out, you're calling triple time. We're calling, it's on a holiday, everybody's getting holiday pay. So the person who is called out answers the phone and goes and responds to work is we're asking for double time
Mhm.
because it is a holiday interruption for that particular person.
But you guys want to put aside the triple pay. You want to put that aside and say everybody gets holiday pay. You're right, everyone gets holiday pay. But if you're also being paid double time for those hours in which you are receiving holiday pay, it is 3 times your regular rate of pay. You can put it aside and pretend it doesn't exist, but that's the truth. During that standard workday, you're asking, I'm just clarifying. 'cause
No,
this is
you're
what
absolutely
asking.
right. It is
So
the
you
truth.
keep saying to us in council, it's not triple pay, but that's what you're asking for. Is during your standard workday, if you are called out on a holiday, you will be receiving 3 times your rate of pay.
Okay, so how would you describe your holiday pay?
I'm not talking about me and holiday.
No, I am. I'm asking about people
Well, I
who don't
can
work
also
holidays.
answer your question. So like if I work a holiday, I don't get paid anything extra because I'm exempt.
Right.
But I do work a few holidays because they come at critical times, critical deadlines. So a lot of times Claire works holidays with me. And so when she works a holiday, she gets her holiday pay for her regular shift, so 8 hours of holiday pay.
Okay.
And then any hours that she works that day, she gets paid for those hours.
She's compensated for the
So
work.
say we
That's
came in
great
and
time,
we
though.
started early because we wanted to get some benefit out of the day, so we started at 6 AM. Worked 6 hours, she gets 6 hours of pay for the hours she worked. And then she gets 8 hours of holiday pay, because that's she's scheduled for 8 hours that day.
That's fine. That
And then
makes
that,
perfect sense to
how
me.
we define that is double time.
Okay,
I believe that's what's causing the confusion is.
And it's the
that
same as police, fire, and the non-reps.
that's
They
fine.
all
That's fine. My question
fall
is,
in that.
my question is
category.
on that, on your example, which is a good example, because we don't see that on this site. Is that, who makes that determination that you're gonna work a particular holiday? I assume you do. Things gotta get done, right?
Mhm.
Okay. On this side of the table,
I don't usually make it mandatory, just so you know, I ask her.
Okay.
she's with me.
perfect, because hours are
For
mandatory.
the record.
It's just part of our schedule. We don't have well, gosh, I really would like to take this holiday. And I suppose you can trade with somebody, but who's gonna trade on a holiday? We don't even ask because it's the holiday for everybody else. So we just take it as part of our schedule. For us, yeah, Christmas is just a Wednesday. Christmas is a bad example because we don't operate. Christmas Eve is just a Wednesday. So if you have to work it, you work it. But we don't have an option not to work. So, okay, you can call it triple time because you're compensated 3 times your normal rate of pay for the entire day. But that does include a holiday pay that everyone's getting. And if somebody who never worked a holiday, or rarely worked a holiday, or isn't required to work a holiday, we just call that a paid holiday. We're just asking for the same respect. We're just getting a paid holiday, but then there's compensation on top of that.
But then you're also getting extra because your holiday comp time, vacation and sick leave all count towards overtime. So you're getting compensated even more than everyone else.
Well, I mean, we are required to work it.
So I think what it comes down to with this is the union does not agree with the defining double time as your straight hours actually work paid at straight time plus the holiday shift of a standard workday to equal double time. So that's the language that we don't agree to and don't want to define double time as that way going forward. And I mean, if the math and we all agree on that, we can agree on what the bottom line is. I say let's work on the language to clarify it both sides, but I don't know if you guys agree to that compensation rate that the union is presenting or not, or are you just saying, no, you don't want to make that change?
I think that we're trying to understand the basis for that change. Because one of the things that, you know, that they seem to keep pointing out is there's a number of other employee groups that work holidays. I'm assuming that when the jobs are advertised, they are advertised as working holidays and weekends. And so as a part of that, what is the basis for requiring or for asking for additional pay only for this employee group? That would, you know, highlight the need, you know, are the jobs hard to fill on weekends or holidays? Let's set aside the perception of no one's gonna work on a holiday, because there will be people that work holidays. There's people in our communities that work holidays all the time. Again, you know, the focus is, these are taxpayer dollars, so there's a finite pool for which we can use these resources. So in addition for getting premium pays, you're also asking for a premium, not for working, but for using hours within a particular work week. So, you know, the concern for the city is, are we using the public's funds to pay employees to work? Are we using public funds to pay employees who aren't working actual hours, but are taking vacation and then working, you know, a handful of hours, but being treated as if they had worked a full 40-hour work week? You even have employees within the same departments who will be working the same shifts, the same hours, and receiving substantially different pays, because you have union covered and non-union covered. And so there's a discrepancy there. You know, we're not necessarily recognizing our supervisors who maybe they promoted out of the union. And so then there's a question of, are we creating an environment where we have a workforce that doesn't want to promote, or that doesn't want to get out of those union positions because they're gonna see it too much as a detriment? So are we really growing our employee base, or are we getting employees that want to stagnate for the sake of getting the extra pay, because once they get promoted, or once they get into a position outside of that, there's not as much of a benefit, because they're not gonna get triple time for working on a holiday, where everyone else that might have to work out in that field would only get straight time.
I can't speak for people who aren't in the union. I know in the past we've tried to add positions into the union and the city has declined that as a hard no. They don't want to add and recognize other positions. So I can't speak for that. And what you guys do for them is out of our hands, because we're talking about the employees covered by this contract.
Well, and I think that it's hard for the city, because even for the employees covered by the contract, you actually represent a minority of those employees. A majority of the employees that are represented by this contract have elected not to join your.
Well, they're still representative.
Well, I understand
So
that.
you can't
On your
say
side.
it that way.
Well, the city can, because you don't actually represent a majority of the employees. At one point in time, you did, which, you know, that gave more weight to it, but when the last contract period, this was an issue. this contract period, this was an issue.
I think you're
And-
misspeaking. They're represented, they're covered by the contract, whether they pay dues or not does not apply to whether or not they're covered by this contract.
By you, yes. But as far as the city, when it comes down to certain things that we have to look at, that does matter to us because kind of like what we were talking before about, employment matters. Under, the city treats confidential information the same as Idaho law. Employee, disciplinary matters is considered a confidential matter. When you have a member that has elected to be a part of the union, certain provisions that relate to sharing their disciplinary matters, you know, it's impliedly consented that they have agreed to share that with the union. The city has some misgivings about sharing that information. An employee has knowingly decided not to participate in the union. And then there's a question on the city side about, has this employee consented to their disciplinary matters being shared outside of just them when they've made the choice not to join your union? Yes, your union is required to represent those people, but the question is the city required to, you know, make concessions? The contract is the contract, so we follow the contract, but at this point, you know, we're talking about a future contract, so when this contract ends, you know, is that something that the city wants to reconsider? That has been something that we have tried to negotiate, as far, and that we've addressed as a concern about sharing information to the staff representative and not just the union representatives, because now we're sharing employee matters, which is a confidential information outside of the city. And under the public record laws, that potentially means that that individual's disciplinary information is now a public record. Because they haven't done anything to the city to show that they would consent to that. And so that's, you know, we've raised those concerns already. Does your union actually represent a majority of the employees covered? Which it doesn't, because your membership is so low. I mean, at what point of your membership being so low, you know, should the city even consider continuing to bargain? Because your participation is dismal, and it has been for a long time. And while, you know, you may look to the city and say, well, what have you done to advertise our union? It's not the city's responsibility to advertise your union. It's your union to advertise, it's your leadership and the council, or, you know, that's completely separate, because we
I
can't.
don't
use-
think we've ever asked for the city to advertise for
Well,
our union.
But
I asked when you posted description, jobs, did you advertise it as a union position or
Yeah.
not? That was not asking if to have the city endorse the union.
Well, I
It
didn't
was
say
just a
anything about,
clarifying question.
I didn't say anything about that. I'm just saying, you know, those are the concerns. That's where we are coming from. So when we ask stuff like, where are you getting this information? What is justifying this? You know, those are the questions that ultimately we have to answer to the public. We have a city council that we are presenting this information to, and so we're trying to act in good faith for not just the city, but the public funds that we are stewards of. So, you know, I understand that, you know, the point of this is to bargain for wages, benefits, and working conditions. But just bargaining, you know, just negotiating over increased wages without a basis for that, that's hard for us to swallow, and that's why we push back. Because you just say, we want a $4 across the board wage for everybody with no basis, you know, at that point, that's even more than we can even budget for. You know, again, we have a finite pool. When we do increase these wages, where do you think that's gonna come from? Increased property taxes, you know, other taxes or fees, or, you know, we have to find somewhere for that to come from. So that's why we push back and say, where are you getting these numbers from? Okay, so.
Can I speak?
Go ahead, Pat.
I think we've kind of gotten far off. We were discussing, you know, the holiday pay and stuff like that, the sick leave and all that. The way that it is a draw to get people to come to work here because they do not pay what private industry pays in this area. That is one of the things that gets people to come here. and hopefully get them to stay. And if we keep taking this stuff away, once again, and I've said it before, we become a training facility and throw $30,000 to $40,000 away in a year when these people get the experience to walk away. These little benefits, the sick leave, the vacation and stuff like that there, to me, is something that if that is taken away, people are gonna walk away with the experience that we've given them and the training that we've given. Doesn't matter what the wording or anything is, this is what they're seeing. We're not educated. We're not human resources. We're not attorneys. We're not the mayor. We're the common working people trying to explain this to these people. And we're hearing, or I'm hearing, that this stuff is very important for them to keep. Otherwise, these people are basically feel like that they're everything that they're getting is being knit or bid at and taken away. So why stay at the lower wage when you're getting stuff picked away from you each contract? Why work for $20 an hour when you can go up the street and work for $35 an hour? Which most people nowadays, that's what they look at, is their paycheck. They've got families, they've got car payments, they've got house payments. So I think if that stuff is taken away, you know, it's downhill.
Well, nobody's talking about taking sick leave and vacation pay, so I don't know. We're
Well-
talking about hours worked.
Yes,
Well, I'm
But
gonna,
also, I just wanna say, we came to you hearing exactly what you just said in the beginning of our meetings and saying, let's move up streets. Let's move up the electrician. Let's move up the custodian. You all agreed that your union did not want to increase those positions' pay. You said streets and traffic are hard to recruit for.
Yep.
We said, let's increase the pay grade. We proposed that to you.
yes.
You all elected to walk away from that proposal. You
Yes.
didn't want to do it.
Be- because-
Proposal was an ultimatum, Nikki.
Because all we hear is the city doesn't have the money. Everything is about what money the city has. So instead of doing all that there, we would rather keep the 40-hour deal where the vacation, all that stuff counts, instead of costing the city more money by giving these step increases and stuff. And if we're gonna do a pay increase and stuff, we don't just look at departments. As the union, we look across the whole group, like you told us. We need to look at representing everybody.
So,
And so that's where that comes from.
so using that, do you not think that there would be a financial benefit if you changed your work week from 40 hours, regardless of what, to 40 hours worked? So the cost savings in the difference between hours worked versus hours accumulated could be used for those higher wages?
Well, like wages, I don't want to speak for Amy, but wages is something that you can financially calculate. Not knowing how many times a person's gonna be called out or how many times a person's gonna work on a holiday. Or might be called in for a holiday, those are, I mean, I don't want to speak for Amy, she might say it's easy to calculate, I don't know, but I would think in my mind, I wouldn't. But I will say to your comment, Pat, when you say you're trying to represent the whole union. You didn't even want to consider increasing the custodians by one grade,
Right,
the lowest paid on your.
But that's just one group.
so
That's what I'm saying. It's 1%
Either
across the
discussion
board.
we had behind the scenes.
So
So
I didn't say I didn't.
An assumption. You're saying we didn't want to consider it.
You
I'm
came to
gonna
the
ask to
table
take over here, because we're gonna run out of time, and let's hear Chris, and then I wanna ask a clarifying comment.
okay, for one, I did make this, because Leah asked us to do some homework, but to begin with, I want to ask Nikki. You bring up that proposal of bringing up the custodians. You guys presented us with two proposals. If you didn't want to give us that other choice of everybody getting 1%, why did you give us that proposal?
You
It's negotiations.
I know,
you
right,
proposed
but
it,
she
you
always-
just give it back.
It always goes back to you saying we chose not to do this one. But you gave both of them to us the same day at the same exact time, right?
Mhm.
So why did you, If you wanted us to keep that one, you should just give us that proposal and said, this is the proposal.
I'm not negotiating with myself, Chris.
I know that.
We
that's-
give
but
you
it
a
seems
proposal.
Like,
You come up with a proposal and you give it back.
Right.
We gave you a proposal and we didn't even hear anything about it.
we told you that we were gonna, what we were gonna
You
do with it.
came.
But you told us that.
I don't wanna argue.
I know,
semantics.
I'm not gonna argue, but it's say,
You are, so I think that we're done with.
Yeah.
that particular
We've been
line.
arguing semantics all
I
morning.
didn't know that.
Okay, let me.
Okay, then
I'm
back
the
to
chair.
this, Mr.
So I'm
Mayor.
the chair, so I'm gonna say we're done with that.
Okay,
So
so,
we understand that. Let's get back to this one and just stay on point. And so, do we understand what their position is?
I mean, I think I do.
Okay,
understand.
so we understand that because we need to talk about that. And we are getting off on a tangent, talking about these other things. There's other issues are not on the table anymore. They've already given us their position
Mhm.
on that. So let's leave that alone. But I think there was a question earlier from Jennifer or Nikki, or I didn't understand it, and it has to do with your request on holiday pay to extend those hours basically for 24 hours on a holiday. So what you're saying is if I'm scheduled to work from 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening, that's my schedule, okay? And so I get my holiday pay, you know, and my regular pay. But if you get called in, let's say at 2 in the morning, which is on that same 24-hour period, which is a holiday, you're asking for that call out pay, but you'd like your holiday hours to be extended. No, early in the morning, you want to get paid holiday pay.
You're getting paid. all
We want that call out
No,
to
you're
be
not
paid
listening.
out at the 2 times the rate of pay instead of the normal standard call out rate during that 24-hour period.
Okay, but I think the question came up earlier because you're asking to make eligible holiday pay 24-hour period.
So I,
Holiday compensation for call.
Yes, and that's what it says. It's a 24-hour period. So if your schedule is 8 to 6, well, let me just ask you questions. That's the easiest way to do it. You're scheduled to work on a holiday from 8 to 6. What do you get paid?
you
What are the
Are you,
rates?
so you're, for this provision, because it's a call, so you're not scheduled to work, but your normal schedule is
No,
8
let's
to
just
6.
on a holiday. If you work a holiday, what do you get? paid?
Scheduled holiday, use that.
You get time and a half for the hours actually worked, plus a normal shift straight time for the holiday.
Okay, so let's say it's 8 to 6, so you get 1.5 plus 1.
Yes,
Okay, you get called out at 2 in the morning on that holiday for 2 hours. What do you get paid?
you would get the 2 hours call out at 2 times the rate of pay,
And not,
plus the normal shift, whether you work it or not. Now, if you work it, it would be paid at time and a half.
but during that 2 hours, you don't also get additional
No,
holiday
it's
pay
just
because you're
2
outside that
times.
10-hour shift.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and I think that's part of what
So then.
Jennifer was getting at.
So
trying
that's
to
the
think
problem,
about-
like, midnight.
Yeah, so what would be the
Well,
point of,
Wait,
So-
wait a minute, one person.
so what would be the point of having a full 24-hour period in which your holiday is, other than being compensated a holiday for your standard workday?
Because the city proposed if a call out occurs outside of the employee's typical working hours, standard call out provisions will apply. So we want that, if it's not during your standard shift, you get it at the call out rate of a holiday call out, which is 2 times. I use the exact same language with the exception of adding that the holiday will be defined from midnight to midnight. And then we changed the rate from 1.5 to 2. It's the same exact language that the city proposed. So I'm confused because you're saying it's confusing, but it's your language you proposed,
Well, I mean,
but changing
It's
the
in-
amounts.
well, yeah, but I think the problem is that if what the city has proposed is a premium paid for a call out, regardless of what day it is, whether it's a weekend, holiday, or regular day. What we propose is that a call out will always have a premium to it. So that if you are called out, regardless of what it is, that is going to be paid at a higher amount, whether it's 1.5% or 2%. You know, if there's a call on a holiday, we've identified specific holidays as a part of this. And then we've identified special pay that you get on a holiday, and that pay is based on your standard workday. But you can have call out on a holiday without requiring the holiday to be between specific hours.
then why in the city's proposal does it say you would only get that additional call out if it's between the typical hours standard of the employee? The
We
last,
define call out as you get called out at any time, any day. It's time and a half.
That might be
Correct.
so what we're saying is on
It's
a
paid
holiday,
over.
because say Pat's 4th of July, he's camping and, or whatever, and now he's gotta, everybody's starting to light off fireworks and he gets called out. We feel that that employee should be compensated at more than just time and a half, which is a normal, because he's disrupting his family time, his personal time, his holiday time to go out and do that. So we want them compensated at 2 times, even though it may be at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, which isn't his normal work day.
You want the call out higher on a holiday.
Yes,
That's right,
yeah,
okay.
you want
Let's
two
just take that.
call out.
We know what that is.
We're not on a full day.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
we can take that with it. We can talk about that. That's easy to understand.
And on a Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday would be, the wording would be the same.
Okay, then, so let's get wage adjustment drop. So we covered that, Nikki, right? Okay, so that was covered. Then the next one that you brought up, Laura. Let me ask the group, we were scheduled till 9:30. Do we have 10 or 15 minutes after that to go? In case we get buried in this discussion.
I do.
I have to be somewhere at 10, but I can help time this out. Maybe, okay. Personnel policy, go ahead, Laura, and probably Nikki and Leah to lead this one. The
For
first one was the sunsets, and then you talked about the adjustments for general.
Yeah,
meeting.
so
And
copy-
we need page numbers too, as you look at this.
so mine is page 27, but I think your guys' are a page ahead. I don't know why when it printed it didn't. Okay, no going. Looks like it's higher than page stuff. Keep going.
What, I'm sorry, what section are we going to?
Article 30, the very last section.
Okay.
Very much.
It looks like when mine printed it, like put all the deleted on the columns, but on yours it redlined it. Page
Mayor and ours, it
55.
would be 58.
Thank you.
So the discipline, just copies the language from the personnel policy. It's not the exact same order because I kind of used the second section. The first section has the definitions of the type of disciplinary, so I put that in and defined in the middle, but it's basically cut and pasted with the exception of for a record of discussion, that would be removed from the employee's personnel file after a 12-month period, so long as they didn't have a similar event that would restart that 12-month clock. And that's on page. Record of, on page 57,
57,
on Pat's, but I think yours might be a little different. And then the same for a record of discussion, that would be removed after a 24-month period, and I do see a typo where the 12 on the one didn't get removed, it should be 24.
I think that's supposed to be an official recommend. That second one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So at the last meeting, the group had agreed to follow the personnel policy. They had a caucus, and they came back and they had said that. And one of the things that we had proposed was, could we have them follow the personnel policy, but then add in special carve outs specific to the union related to these particular items? Would that be something worth considering here, where really you're copying provisions in the current personnel policy that don't necessarily apply to everybody, because we still have some at will and we still have some for cause. And so we have a mix in our current personnel policy, and you're copying over that mix.
So on some of that, I did make some like grammar clerical, like where it did say at will.
Cause you wouldn't be entitled to a louder hearing in an at-will situation, but you are including here. So as far, and as the city transitions entirely to at-will, we're updating our disciplinary procedures. Our discipline, is currently one of the sections that is under revision to adjust to a totally at-will workforce. So, you know, this policy, even as presented here, is in the process of changing because a lot of it applies specifically to for-cause employment and not at will. But where it comes down to where there's differences in our policy versus, you know, what you would desire, is there, you know, could we incorporate those instead and have them be in addition to our personnel policy?
My concern with that is the personnel policy could change multiple times a year. And we don't necessarily, we could petition and make public comment to city council, but then how, if that's going to change frequently, how does that give us those protections and be able to negotiate those at a later time? So my concern with that is, but we just want, we're in agreement to at will, but we want a procedure outlined of that the employee will get the right to defend themselves, present their information that may be different from what management's presenting for that discipline. So there's a structure for it to follow. So that's, I think we would be okay with that, but I would have to talk to my team before I can make that decision.
Well, and we already have those procedures in our policy because we're still gonna continue to discipline for cause. The employment status is at will, so, you know, even for our non-represented employees, we've pretty much taken the position that we will discipline for cause under our personnel policy.
Well, and I just want to clarify, because the statement was inaccurate. We generally only update our personnel policy annually. In fact, it hasn't been updated since June of 2024. So I just want to clarify that for everybody.
Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, the city doesn't have a history of frequent changes throughout the year, so, you know, that fear, as, you know, grounded as it might be, the city historically has not taken that position.
So it's realistic to say that it might change 3 times in the next 3 years. Not this particular article, but the personnel.
I mean, the
policy.
idea is that we wouldn't have a lot to change, but
There's gonna be
it was
updates.
direction from city council and leadership that they wanted to review it every year, or at least look to see if updates are needed. In case we're not following law, we found out our military leave was wrong.
Yeah.
No reason to change
Fair enough,
it.
and I appreciate that explanation, but, and that's,
We're not
that's,
seeking to take things away, destroy the employees, you know, workforce.
nor am I
We're
trying
trying to
that, I'm
be in
just saying,
compliance
once
with
a
rules,
year is pretty
regulations,
accurate, right?
Yeah, once a year would probably be accurate, because we do find that we go through certain processes.
I find
Oh, this
myself
doesn't
saying
work,
that.
This is repetitive, this is confusing, so we are trying to, over time, it will get smoother and smoother.
You know, we're updating our CDL language because that's changed. You know, we updated military leave, that changed, so.
But a lot of
it's
times there's not-
necessary.
There's not a lot of big substance change.
We get sections that don't make sense, or that maybe didn't, we thought would work, but didn't work.
The new laws with CBS, correct?
There was some confusion as to who pays for the CDL. So.
But
Supervisor, that's.
But I just want to answer that, though, yes is the answer to your question. That it could be changed 3 times in 3 years, you know, maybe it's changed 4 times in 4 years, if there's an urgency, if something comes out. But also, as employees of the city of Lewiston, that is covered by that, you know, in part, you have every right to submit your concerns and comments to supervisors, managers, or come to HR. If you had, a more serious concern, you could go talk to legal about it, and, I'm pretty confident we would look at that, consider it. I don't know what the answer would be or what the issue would be, but as an employee, any employee of the city, it's, the policy belongs to the council, but it regulates the city, and the mayor is the administrator of that policy. You know, or you come to the mayor, talk to the mayor, but
I'm not implying that things change underhandedly. I mean, we all have a copy every time this change is made, it comes out in email. I don't know, anybody in our department sit down or read it, try to compare what changed, or usually it's legal speak, I get it.
Well, you would be notified of any.
There's a
And we always are.
If a policy was made that was gonna have an unintended effect on someone, I don't think that's the goal. That, even maybe someone that you don't like, that's in a leadership position, like the council. of the
Like
mayor,
all the
something like
leadership
that.
positions.
Yeah, but,
No, I understand.
yeah, so I mean, there's a part of truth. I think everybody has to trust it. The council has to trust it, because
Absolutely.
you get four of them to vote one way and the other two say this is absolutely, nonsense. That's the policy.
Yeah.
But it could be the other way too, where somebody wrote a policy that the other two said, well, can't afford that or this, that, or whatever. It's part of our government, and it's gonna be part of our relationship with the union. We're living, breathing entities and we just all try to do our best, so. I think Jennifer's got a good suggestion there. I hadn't heard that before and think about that, but at some point, it's just gonna require probably some trust on your part and maybe a new way of doing things, which has happened, right, since the mayor came on board. Starting with asking the council to vote on whether or not to bargain, right, because that's what it says. And so I tried to follow the process, the rules, and it has cost a little bit more work, but I think at the end it's gonna be a good product, so.
Well, and what I heard last time was it wasn't the discipline policy. The goal was, and the issue was, the concern was that discipline was not being removed from the personnel file. It could be there forever. So I guess I don't quite understand why all of this needs to be in here and why just that language doesn't need to be in the contract. We have other contracts where it says that an employee can request to have their record of discussion, or maybe even official reprimand, be removed with approval by the chief or whoever it is. So if that's the concern, I don't think you need all of this language. I think you just need that provision, which would supersede the personnel policy, which doesn't say that.
Well, and we're trying to not have a bunch of duplicates in the contract.
Yeah, and I mean, in an effort to be able to follow discipline accurately, it would just make sense that you don't have multiple different types of disciplinary procedures out there.
But I
That's
think our
just my
concern
two
is that you want us to agree to a certain set of rules that are in the process of being rewritten, so we don't know what that's gonna look like. So,
But again, it's not at the detriment of the employee, it's a clarification in order for discipline to be followed accurately. This is what I heard from them when we talked about evaluations. Again, we're not going in there to do something at the detriment of an employee, not necessarily, that's at least not my intention. It's to make it clear, understandable, ability to follow it, have it make sense. And if you have multiple agreements with all different types of discipline, I just see a real muddy situation in being able to follow it accurately. That's just my 2 cents.
I understand it, but then on our side, we wanna see that too, so it's hard to agree to something if we haven't seen it yet, is our concern, so.
So to answer, you had a question in here on a comment under notice of disciplinary action. The report detailing the nature of the proposed disciplinary action may include conditions or future actions to be taken. The report will include the proposed effective date of the disciplinary action. The reason why an individual would be, if your statement was that this was confusing, the employee shall meet with the department director before discipline is issued. How can the effective date be included? The union has to work proposed. So the way that this typically happens is, at the point where disciplinary action is going to be taken in a variety of our different contracts and the way that this works in the different work groups is an allegation of wrongdoing has occurred. Somebody's looking into it. They've done what they needed to do, and they're at the point where they're making the determination that disciplinary action is going to be imposed. And so what they do is they provide a notice to the employee of the nature of the allegations, what their findings were, and that they're proposing disciplinary action to be X, Y, Z. And they're gonna give them the opportunity to meet with them and, you know, to discuss it. About, you know, why it should be this or why it should be that, and the date of of when the action would be occurring. Now, in some instances, that meeting will allow the director to say, okay, maybe there is, and you know, there was a mitigating factor that wasn't known or discovered through the investigation. But they typically know the date of the disciplinary action because they've pretty much made the determination that based on all the information that they've discovered, that some sort of disciplinary action has to occur. So the employee is getting notice prior to the disciplinary action. They're getting an opportunity to meet with their supervisor prior to the disciplinary action. And then they have the opportunity to present whatever they might have if they haven't already had the opportunity. Because in most instances, prior to this notice actually occurring, they've already met with the supervisor or the supervisor's already talked to other people or gathered other information. So that's how they'll know the date of the discipline, before the actual, discipline is enacted, because it's like, hey, you're gonna be disciplined, you're gonna get a performance improvement plan, we'll meet and discuss that, but this will occur as of this date. So that way the employee, it's not sprung on them. Sometimes there's time in advance to allow them to prepare. If it's like, you know, if they're leave without pay, they'll kind of figure out what that, you know, what works for their schedule or, you know, things of that nature.
That seems like a better clarification.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's from like how I've actually seen this occur.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you.
my opinion, I guess when they, switch to non-representative or, I mean, kind of would have been, it's nice to have a little bit of education on the differences, you know, before. Just knowing what, you know, what it consists of. And I know you said that. Or that under, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it's all municipalities. You're still kind of for cause, is that what you were just explaining there?
Well, it's discipline for cause.
Okay, that's not what the state.
You talk about at will employment, so we're talking,
Right.
that's two different.
Right, I
things.
will, but you said that there's still a process because we're, you know, municipality, right? Okay. That's,
Well, I mean, and there was numerous discussions about it with the city council in public session, so there was a lot of that already. And those are open to the public, they're on YouTube.
thank you.
You guys wanna talk about this?
I'd like to,
Well,
We're out of time, so we'll
Yeah,
have caucus.
okay.
just really quick, is Laura made her deal up there and I kind of went off of ours. Because they kind of want to show,
Well, I think that they're saying that let's not talk about this right now,
she said,
because the mayor wanted to be here for this too,
okay,
and we ran out of time.
sorry, I misunderstood you, Amy.
Is he coming back?
No, he has a meeting.
Okay.
He's got the state parks, lady in town for reading the conversion.
So we want to schedule the next, because I don't think we have any.
Yeah, we don't have any other meetings scheduled.
We do need to make certain when we schedule our next meeting that we find time in between, that we can discuss these items so that we don't go, be getting into a caucus.
I'll be
Not
on
a good
vacation, so Ryan or somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I'll be honest, it's gonna be really hard to find time in the next week.
I guess, are we on the holiday call out? I think if the city would agree to the union's payout on those, maybe rework and clarify the language, that there's other things than that. We would have an agreement we could take back to our group to vote on. That some of the other things could be off the table.
So my notes that I have is that what you would be asking for is that for call out on a holiday, we want 2 times the rate of pay
For the hours actually
for
were,
that,
well, minimum of 2.
yeah. But it would be paid at a rate of 2 times. And then a normal call out on any other day would be at 1.5, except the holiday, I'm just counting Sunday, two
Yes.
times holiday and Sunday. But that you're not asking an additional holiday pay.
No, except you keep it the same.
on
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, so you would just get your call out for the hours worked out from midnight to midnight at 2 times plus straight hour of a normal holiday shift.
Yeah, that all worked on.
Now, if this opens a can of worms, just let me know. Oh, no, I'll just skip it. Just wait. Let's just wait.
Not better.
I was trying to think how.
It looks like we're pretty open Tuesday afternoon.
The mayor's not here next week.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
I
only here on Monday, but there's, we have that joint meeting with the commissioners.
That's
So like we would have, yeah, we would have time to do our meeting for all the items that we didn't get a caucus on today.
We also have it.
Prior to it, but there's not gonna be any time, other time that day.
Yeah, there's a tentative special meeting at 2:30 as well.
So we potentially as a group could meet that day.
So,
I mean,
Just for the record, if we do come up with a time, Chris will be gone on vacation. You'll be gone also? Okay, well, David has been involved with our negotiations. We've been to a few of these. He will be sitting in Chris's spot. I don't have a place for Morgan, or not anybody to take Morgan's place. I didn't know that till just now.
I believe, I don't know what our ground rules say about that, but I mean, changing the negotiating team midway.
the mayor discussed it earlier that he was gonna have to be gone for some and that they would have to substitute on your side too.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
I
first
think
part.
it means as far as amongst us, who's gonna lead,
yeah, no one,
No one new at the table, would be at the table, because we've already set our negotiating team.
And there's,
Oh, okay, so if I'm understanding the scheduling, basically, we cannot schedule one before the deadline.
We didn't say
No.
that.
Well, didn't you say the mayor was coming down next week?
I did say that, and I said, so we would have to have our meeting
okay.
on the items we weren't able to caucus before he left. And we have a very narrow window to do that. That's what I said.
Okay. I'm just looking at my calendar to see if we had, do we have a time?
well, that's what we're trying to figure out.
I mean,
Yeah, that's,
I do see from like 12 to 2, I think we're all open on Monday, but that doesn't really give us any time to meet.
Well, that's the time we're gonna have to meet with the mayor. Well, we haven't had a chance.
Yeah, that doesn't give us
Anything
any
today,
time to meet.
So,
But it sounds like there's time on Tuesday.
Well, I think the mayor's gone on Tuesday.
well, that's why
You'll
you'll
just have to meet it
Helen.
on.
Okay.
He'll pick a lead negotiator.
Yeah, I think Tuesday afternoon, we're all open.
The ground rules don't specify that the team has to be listed ahead of time,
Well, I mean,
or who that team is.
I don't know how practical that is really though, to constantly change who is participating. I just,
It's been common practice in the past.
so does somebody have a suggestion of?
I'm not lying in the afternoon. Well, like we can't go to the coast.
Oh, I thought you guys were looking at your calendars.
Yeah,
I mean,
I-
you
I-
guys
I-
agree
I
on-
wanted to extend the negotiations to begin with.
It wasn't, I was.
At this point, Larry,
Tuesday, the
nobody's gonna say
17th
no
or the
unless they're
24th.
on vacation.
Okay,
17.
so
anytime.
when do you want to start? And how long do you want to go?
1 o'clock.
What, is everybody open in the afternoon?
We are.
Okay. I'd say 1 to 4 at least for 5. Are you on night shift that day? Sorry,
no,
Pat.
no, that has changed.
I
That
am
has changed.
not, I was looking at that, I'm on day.
Yeah, mine has changed. I'm not gonna be on that shift, so. That don't matter, it starts at 11 anyway.
Go to effect.
I know, I was
You wanna-
tired.
I gotta leave at like 3:05.
30? Let's see, maybe time to wrap up others.
Yeah, you know.
Well, let's just schedule till 4.
Wonderful.
I mean, we can schedule it till 5, if you guys would prefer. But I think we could probably all stay. Some of us could probably stay past the meeting too. But again, with the mayor not here,
Well, he's gonna have to give direction to the lead negotiator what he
Yeah.
is going to.
yeah, we pockets, and he's not here to give us a decision.
Are we?
Wonderful.
Yeah, unless we want to schedule for the next week. too.
I was gonna say, could we, yeah, look at the next week too, cause I only have Monday and Tuesday of the next week available, so if I'd rather hold it and not need it than trying to find a date later after it's already filled with something else.
I can't do Monday, that's my budget work session.
And there's a city council meeting at 3.
That's a budget work session.
Oh, on Tuesday, that's on Tuesday, right?
No,
No,
Monday,
it's Monday.
there's a special meeting, oh wait,
Well, there's a city council special budget meeting on someone's calendar on Tuesday.
Those are, I think, tentative hold dates, but council never brought anything to the table for additional items they want to discuss, so I don't think those meetings will be held.
It's Tuesday the 24th, that's our deadline anyhow, right?
25th.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, if those city council special budget meetings aren't happening on that Tuesday, then we're all open in the afternoon.
Tuesday. You back?
I'll be back.
Okay, so you back? You're back?
And that, I'll be back that next Monday.
Yeah, okay, and Laura, you're,
I mean, Mayor's
Free that
anyway,
day
yeah,
on the 24th.
okay, well, I say.
back.
I don't know.
I don't think that he'll be back by Tuesday, I think he'll be back by a little bit later. He's got AIC and then he's got vacation.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably be back, but not officially.
Well, do you guys wanna do 1 o'clock again?
Hey,
Just schedule it till 4?
Sure.
Are we adjourned?
Yeah, are we good? Is that good for now?
Yep.